A night filled with rain has something in it that primes the stage for a tale of terror. The padding of the raindrops, the occasional clap of thunder, the flashes of eerie intermittent lightning. It is just such an atmosphere, ripe for the kind of stories that do chill the bones. Find yourself alone tonight? Well, brace yourself for these truly creepy, true scary stories, each more harrowing than the last. Story 1. The Vanishing Hitchhiker. One late evening, Mark was driving home from a friend's house. It was raining heavily, and the road was barely visible through the sheets of rain. As he approached a secluded stretch of highway, he saw a figure standing by the roadside, drenched but seemingly unbothered by the rain. Feeling a pang of sympathy, Mark pulled over and offered the hitchhiker a ride. The young woman thanked him and got in. She was quiet, almost eerily so, but Mark didn't mind. He tried making small talk, but she only responded with nods or single words. After about 10 minutes of driving in silence, Mark asked her where she was headed. She pointed ahead and softly said, "Just a bit further." As they reached an old, decrepit house on the outskirts of town, she asked him to stop. She got out, thanked him, and walked towards the house. Mark watched her until she vanished into the darkness, then drove off. The next day, curious about the mysterious hitchhiker, Mark mentioned the incident to a local at a diner. The man's face turned pale. He told Mark that the house had been abandoned for years, and a young woman who lived there had died in a car accident on that very road years ago. Mark was shaken to his core when he realized he had given a ride to a ghost. Story 2. The Haunted Doll. A young couple, Sarah and Tom, moved into a charming old house in a quiet neighborhood. Among the many antiques left by the previous owner, they found a beautiful but eerie porcelain doll. Sarah felt a strange unease around the doll, but she shrugged it off as her imagination. They placed it in a glass cabinet in the living room and went about their lives. Soon, strange things started happening. They would hear soft whispers and footsteps at night, even though they were alone. Objects would move on their own, and the doll seemed to change its position. One night, Sarah woke up to find the doll sitting at the foot of their bed, even though they had left it locked in the cabinet. Terrified, they decided to get rid of it. They took the doll to a nearby forest and buried it deep in the ground. For a while, things seemed to return to normal. But one stormy night, Sarah heard a faint tapping on the window. She looked out and saw the doll, muddy and worn, staring back at her with lifeless eyes. They moved out the next day, leaving the haunted doll and the house behind forever. Story 3. The Phantom Caller. Emily lived alone in a small apartment in the city. One rainy evening, she received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was distorted, barely human, and it whispered her name. She hung up, unnerved but dismissing it as a prank. The calls continued over the next few days, each more sinister than the last. The voice seemed to know details about her life, her routine, and even her thoughts. Emily grew increasingly paranoid, unable to sleep or concentrate. She reported the calls to the police, but they couldn't trace the number. One night, the voice told her it was coming for her. In a panic, Emily barricaded herself in her bedroom. The storm outside raged on, and the power went out, plunging her apartment into darkness. She heard footsteps approaching her door, and the handle slowly turned. Emily braced herself for the worst. Suddenly, the door burst open, but there was no one there. The calls stopped after that night, but Emily moved out, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. To this day, she wonders who, or what, was on the other end of the line. Story 4. The Shadow in the Attic. John and his family moved into an old house that they bought at a surprisingly low price. The previous owners had left in a hurry, leaving behind most of their belongings. One evening, John decided to explore the attic, which was cluttered with old furniture and dusty boxes. As he rummaged through the boxes, he felt a cold chill and heard a faint whisper. Turning around, he saw a shadowy figure in the corner, staring at him with glowing eyes. Terrified, he ran downstairs and told his wife. They both dismissed it as his imagination, but the unease lingered. Over the next few weeks, the family experienced strange occurrences. Footsteps in the attic, objects moving on their own, and eerie whispers. One night, John woke up to find the shadowy figure standing at the foot of his bed. He could feel its cold breath on his face. The next day, they called a paranormal investigator. The investigator discovered that the house had a dark history. A previous owner had practiced dark rituals in the attic, and the shadowy figure was the tormented spirit of a victim. After a cleansing ritual, the disturbances stopped, but John and his family moved out, unable to forget the terror they had experienced. Story 5. The Mirror's Reflection. Lily loved antique shopping and was thrilled when she found an ornate, vintage mirror at a flea market. She hung it in her bedroom, admiring its intricate design. However, she soon noticed something strange. The mirror's reflection seemed slightly off. Sometimes, she saw figures moving in the background that weren't there. One night, she woke up to find her reflection staring at her with a sinister smile, even though she was sure she wasn't smiling. Panicking, she covered the mirror with a sheet and went back to sleep. The next morning, she discovered the sheet had been torn to shreds. Terrified, she researched the mirror's history and found out it had belonged to a woman who practiced witchcraft. The woman had used the mirror for dark rituals and cursed it before her death. Desperate to rid herself of the haunted mirror, Lily took it to a local church and had it blessed. She then smashed it into pieces and buried them far away from her home. The disturbances ceased, but Lily never bought another antique mirror again. As the rain continues to fall outside and the night grows darker, these stories serve as a reminder that the world is full of mysteries and the unknown. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, there's no denying the chill that runs down your spine when you hear a true scary story. So, as you sit alone tonight, listen closely to the sounds around you and remember, sometimes the things that go bump in the night are more than just your imagination. Story 6. The Old Oak Tree. The town of Ravenswood was known for its beautiful, ancient oak tree that stood at the center of the town square. The tree was massive, with gnarled branches that stretched out like twisted fingers. Local legend had it that the tree was cursed, and anyone who spent the night under its branches would be visited by restless spirits. One summer, a group of teenagers dared each other to camp out under the oak tree. Emily, Jake, and Sarah were excited about the adventure, dismissing the curse as a mere myth. They set up their tents, started a campfire, and spent the evening telling ghost stories and laughing. As midnight approached, the atmosphere grew heavy and the air seemed to thicken. The fire flickered and dimmed, and a chilling wind rustled through the leaves. Suddenly, Emily felt a cold hand brush against her arm. She turned to see a shadowy figure standing just outside the circle of light. The figure whispered her name, sending shivers down her spine. Jake and Sarah noticed the change in Emily's demeanor and asked what was wrong. She pointed to where she had seen the figure, but it was gone. They decided to ignore it and went to bed, but sleep was elusive. Throughout the night, they heard whispers, footsteps, and the sound of branches creaking under an unseen weight. At dawn, they packed up and hurried home, shaken but relieved to have survived the night. Later that day, they learned that a woman had been found dead at the base of the oak tree. Her body was twisted in a way that defied explanation, and her face was frozen in a look of sheer terror. The teens never spoke of that night again, and the oak tree remained a source of fear and mystery in Ravenswood. Story 7. The Phantom of the Theater. The old Grandview Theater had been abandoned for years, its once opulent halls now filled with dust and decay. Legend had it that the theater was haunted by the ghost of a former actress, Margaret Sinclair, who had died tragically during a performance. Aspiring filmmaker David decided to make a documentary about the theater and its haunted history. He gained permission to spend a weekend in the theater, filming his experiences. On the first night, as he explored the dimly lit corridors and empty auditoriums, he felt an eerie presence. The air was thick with the smell of old wood and mustiness. As he set up his camera in the main auditorium, he heard the faint sound of a piano playing a haunting melody. Following the sound, he found an old, dusty piano on the stage, its keys moving as if played by invisible hands. David captured the phenomenon on film, his heart racing. He decided to investigate further and ventured into the dressing rooms. In one of the rooms, he found an old, cracked mirror. Suddenly, Margaret's ghostly figure appeared in the reflection, her eyes filled with sorrow and despair. She reached out to him, her voice a soft whisper, "Help me?" Terrified but determined, David asked how he could help. Margaret revealed that she had been wrongfully accused of a crime she didn't commit and had died with her name tainted. She needed her story to be told so she could find peace. David spent the rest of the weekend piecing together Margaret's life and death, uncovering the truth about her innocence. When he released his documentary, it not only became a sensation but also cleared Margaret's name. The Grandview Theater was restored, and Margaret's spirit was never seen again. David felt a sense of fulfillment, knowing he had helped a restless soul find peace. Story 8. The Disappearing Roommate. When Jenny moved into her new apartment, she was thrilled to find a place in the city that she could afford. She quickly became friends with her roommate, Laura, who was kind and outgoing. They got along well and often spent evenings chatting or watching movies together. One day, Laura didn't come home from work. Jenny tried calling her, but her phone was off. Days passed with no sign of Laura, and Jenny reported her missing to the police. Strangely, the police found no record of Laura ever living in the apartment or working at her supposed job. Jenny was bewildered and terrified. How could someone she had known so well simply vanish without a trace? Determined to find answers, Jenny started digging into the apartment's history. She discovered that Laura was a former tenant who had mysteriously disappeared a year before Jenny moved in. No one had seen or heard from her since. The more Jenny learned, the more she noticed strange occurrences in the apartment. Cold spots, whispers, and the feeling of being watched. One night, Jenny found a hidden diary under a floorboard in Laura's room. It detailed Laura's growing fear of a presence in the apartment, something dark and malevolent. Laura believed she was being haunted and that it was trying to take her away. Jenny contacted a paranormal investigator who performed a cleansing ritual. The disturbances ceased, but Jenny never felt truly safe in the apartment again. She moved out, leaving behind the mystery of Laura's disappearance and the malevolent presence that still lingered in the shadows. Story 9. The Cabin in the Woods. Eager for a weekend getaway, a group of friends rented a secluded cabin in the woods. The cabin was charming, surrounded by tall trees and a peaceful lake. The first night was idyllic, filled with laughter and campfire stories. But as the sun set on the second day, the mood shifted. One of the friends, Mike, found an old, tattered journal in the cabin's attic. The journal belonged to a man named Samuel, who had lived in the cabin decades ago. Samuel wrote about strange occurrences and his growing paranoia about being watched by unseen eyes. His final entries were frantic, detailing how he had barricaded himself inside the cabin, convinced that something was coming for him. That night, the friends heard strange noises outside, twigs snapping, low growls, and whispers carried by the wind. They dismissed it as wildlife and went to bed, but the noises grew louder and closer. Suddenly, the power went out, plunging the cabin into darkness. Panic set in as the friends realized they were not alone. Shadows flitted outside the windows, and the door rattled as if something was trying to get in. Desperate, they armed themselves with whatever they could find and prepared to defend themselves. As dawn broke, the noises stopped and the cabin fell silent. They packed up and left, vowing never to return. Later, they learned that Samuel had disappeared without a trace, and the cabin had been abandoned ever since. The friends never spoke of what happened that night, but the terror they experienced remained etched in their memories. Story 10. The Ghostly Nurse. During his final year of medical school, Jason took a night shift at an old, run-down hospital known for its eerie atmosphere. The hospital was rumored to be haunted by the ghost of a nurse named Alice, who had died tragically in a fire years ago. Jason, a skeptic, dismissed the stories as mere superstition. One night, while doing his rounds, Jason noticed a nurse in an old-fashioned uniform standing at the end of a dimly lit corridor. He called out to her, but she didn't respond. As he approached, she vanished into thin air. Jason was startled, but rationalized it as a trick of the light. Over the next few nights, the sightings became more frequent. Jason would see the nurse out of the corner of his eye, hear her footsteps echoing through empty halls, and feel a cold breeze whenever she was near. One night, while reviewing patient charts, he felt a hand on his shoulder. Turning around, he came face to face with Alice's ghost. Her eyes were filled with sadness, and she whispered, "Help them." Determined to understand her message, Jason researched the hospital's history and discovered that Alice had died trying to save patients trapped in the fire. He found records of those who had perished and set up a small memorial in their honor. After the memorial, the sightings stopped, and the hospital felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. Jason graduated and moved on, but he never forgot the ghostly nurse who had sought his help from beyond the grave. Her story became a legend among the hospital staff, a reminder of the dedication and sacrifice of those who came before them. Story 16. The Ghost of the Lighthouse. The old lighthouse on Blackwood Cliff had guided ships safely to shore for over a century, but it had been abandoned for years. It was said that the spirit of the last lighthouse keeper, Samuel, who had died in a tragic accident, still haunted the tower. Samuel had been dedicated to his duty, and his death had left the lighthouse in disrepair. One stormy night, Emma, a marine biologist, and her team decided to take shelter in the lighthouse after their boat was damaged. The wind howled and rain pounded the cliffs as they climbed the winding staircase to the top. They settled in, grateful for the shelter, but an uneasy feeling settled over them. As they explored the lighthouse, they noticed strange occurrences. The light at the top flickered on and off, even though there was no power. They heard footsteps echoing through the halls and saw the faint glow of a lantern moving in the darkness. One by one, Emma's team members reported seeing a ghostly figure of an old man, his face etched with sorrow, wandering the corridors. Determined to uncover the truth, Emma delved into the history of the lighthouse. She learned that Samuel had died trying to fix the light during a violent storm, sacrificing himself to save the ships at sea. His spirit remained, unable to rest until his duty was fulfilled. Emma decided to honor Samuel's memory by repairing the lighthouse. With the help of her team, she fixed the light and restored the lighthouse to its former glory. On the night they finished, the ghost of Samuel appeared one last time. He nodded in gratitude, then disappeared, the light shining brightly once more. The lighthouse was soon reactivated, guiding ships safely to shore again. Emma and her team left, knowing they had helped a dedicated spirit find peace. The story of Samuel's sacrifice and the restoration of the lighthouse became a legend, a testament to the enduring power of duty and dedication. Story 17. The Poltergeist of Pine Street. The Johnson family moved into their dream home on Pine Street, a charming old house with a spacious garden and plenty of room for their children to play. However, their happiness was short-lived as strange things began to happen. Doors would slam shut on their own, objects would move or disappear, and the air often felt cold and heavy. One evening, as the family sat down for dinner, the chandelier above them began to sway violently. The children screamed, and the lights flickered before going out completely. When the lights came back on, they saw a shadowy figure standing in the hallway. It vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the family terrified. The disturbances escalated, with loud bangs, footsteps in the attic, and eerie whispers becoming a regular occurrence. The Johnsons decided to call a paranormal investigator, hoping to find answers and restore peace to their home. The investigator, Mr. Blackwood, discovered that the house had a dark history. It had once belonged to a man named Harold, who had died under mysterious circumstances. His spirit was trapped in the house, angry and vengeful, lashing out at the living. Mr. Blackwood performed a cleansing ritual, but Harold's spirit was too powerful to be banished so easily. The Johnsons decided to confront the ghost directly, holding a seance to communicate with him. During the seance, Harold's spirit manifested, revealing that he had been wronged by a former owner and had died seeking justice. The Johnsons promised to uncover the truth about Harold's death and bring his story to light. They researched old records and spoke to longtime residents, piecing together the events that led to Harold's demise. With the evidence they gathered, they were able to clear Harold's name and hold a memorial in his honor. With his name cleared and justice served, Harold's spirit finally found peace. The disturbances stopped, and the Johnson family was able to enjoy their home once more. The story of Harold's haunting and the Johnsons' bravery became a local legend, a reminder of the importance of seeking the truth and righting past wrongs. Story 18. The Phantom Pianist. The grand, old mansion had been abandoned for years, its once beautiful gardens now overgrown and its windows boarded up. It was said that the mansion was haunted by the ghost of a talented pianist, Maria, who had lived there in the early 1900s. Maria had been a prodigy, her music enchanting all who heard it, but she had died young, her life cut short by a mysterious illness. Anna, a young music student, was fascinated by the stories of Maria and decided to explore the mansion. She hoped to find some of Maria's old compositions, and perhaps even a glimpse of the ghostly pianist. One rainy afternoon, Anna made her way to the mansion, her curiosity overpowering her fear. As she entered the decaying structure, she felt a chill in the air. The grand piano in the parlor was covered in dust, its keys yellowed with age. Anna approached it cautiously, feeling a strange pull towards the instrument. She sat down and began to play, her fingers moving over the keys as if guided by an unseen force. Suddenly, the piano played a melody on its own, a hauntingly beautiful tune that sent shivers down Anna's spine. She looked up and saw the ghostly figure of Maria standing beside the piano, her eyes filled with sorrow. Maria's spirit seemed to be pleading with Anna to continue playing. Determined to help, Anna spent the next few days at the mansion, playing the piano and transcribing the music that Maria's spirit guided her to play. Each piece was more beautiful than the last, filled with emotion and longing. As Anna played, she felt a connection with Maria, as if the music was a way to bridge the gap between their worlds. One evening, as the rain poured outside, Anna played the final piece Maria had guided her to. The room filled with a soft, ethereal glow, and Maria's spirit appeared one last time. She smiled at Anna, her expression one of gratitude and peace, before fading away. Anna left the mansion with a collection of Maria's lost compositions, her heart filled with a sense of accomplishment and a deeper understanding of the power of music. The mansion remained abandoned, but the story of the phantom pianist and the young music student who helped her find peace became a beloved tale in the town. Story 19. The Haunted Playground. The playground at the edge of town had always been a place of laughter and joy, but it also had a darker side. It was said that the playground was haunted by the spirit of a little girl named Lucy, who had died in a tragic accident years ago. Children often reported seeing a ghostly figure on the swings, and strange noises could be heard at night. Jake, a local teenager, didn't believe in ghosts and decided to spend the night at the playground to prove it. Armed with a flashlight and a video camera, he set up camp near the swings. The night was calm, with only the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. As midnight approached, Jake heard the sound of a child laughing. He shined his flashlight towards the swings and saw a faint, ghostly figure of a little girl, her eyes filled with sadness. She looked at Jake and whispered, "Play with me." Terrified but curious, Jake approached the swings. The ghostly figure vanished, but the swing began to move on its own. Jake sat down and gently pushed the swing, feeling a strange presence beside him. He spoke to the ghost, asking who she was and what she wanted. Through a series of eerie whispers and faint images, Jake learned that Lucy had died while playing on the swings and had been searching for someone to play with ever since. Her spirit was trapped, unable to move on. Determined to help, Jake gathered his friends and held a small memorial for Lucy at the playground. They brought flowers, toys, and shared stories, hoping to give her the closure she needed. As they finished, the air grew warmer, and they felt a sense of peace wash over them. That night, the playground was quiet, and the ghostly figure of Lucy was never seen again. Jake and his friends knew they had helped a lost soul find peace, and the playground became a place of joy once more. The story of Lucy's haunting and the teenagers who helped her find rest became a cherished tale in the town, a reminder of the power of kindness and compassion. Story 20. The Restless Soldier. In the small town of Maplewood, an old, abandoned battlefield was said to be haunted by the ghost of a soldier named Thomas, who had died in a skirmish during the Civil War. Locals often reported seeing a lone figure in a tattered uniform wandering the field at night, his eyes filled with sorrow and longing. One evening, historian and Civil War enthusiast David decided to visit the battlefield. He was fascinated by the stories and hoped to find evidence of the haunting. As he walked through the overgrown field, the sun set and the air grew cold. David set up his camera and waited, his breath visible in the chilly air. Around midnight, he saw a figure in the distance, walking slowly and aimlessly. David approached cautiously, feeling a mix of fear and excitement. The figure turned towards him, revealing the ghostly visage of Thomas. Thomas's spirit seemed lost, repeating the same path over and over. David tried to communicate, asking the ghost what he needed. Through a series of faint whispers and ghostly gestures, David learned that Thomas had died trying to deliver an important message, and his spirit was trapped, unable to rest until the message was delivered. Determined to help, David researched the battle and discovered the details of Thomas's mission. He found a descendant of the soldier's family and shared the story, finally delivering the message that had been lost for generations. With the message delivered and his duty fulfilled, Thomas's spirit appeared to David one last time. He nodded in gratitude, then vanished into the night, the air growing warmer and the field feeling more peaceful. David left the battlefield knowing he had helped a restless soul find peace. The story of the restless soldier and the historian who helped him became a legend in Maplewood, a reminder of the enduring power of duty and the importance of honoring the past. These true scary stories, filled with ghosts, hauntings, and restless spirits, remind us that the world is full of mysteries and the unknown. The rain continues to fall, and the night grows darker, but as you sit alone, remember that sometimes the things that go bump in the night are more than just your imagination. They are echoes of the past, seeking closure, justice, or simply a way to be remembered. So, listen closely to the sounds around you, and keep an eye on the shadows, for you never know what might be lurking just beyond your sight. Story 21. The Crying Child. In a quiet suburban neighborhood, there was an old house that had a reputation for being haunted. The previous owners had moved out abruptly, leaving the house vacant for years. New to the neighborhood, Lisa and her young daughter, Sophie, moved in, unaware of its dark history. On their first night, Lisa was awakened by the sound of a child crying. She rushed to Sophie's room, but her daughter was sound asleep. The crying seemed to come from the walls, growing louder and more desperate. Lisa checked every room but found nothing. The crying stopped as suddenly as it had started, leaving Lisa shaken. The following nights, The crying continued, always at the same time. Sophie began talking about a new friend she had made, a little boy named Danny. Lisa brushed it off as an imaginary friend, but as the crying persisted, she grew increasingly worried. One night, while comforting Sophie during a particularly loud episode, Lisa saw a ghostly figure of a young boy standing in the doorway. His eyes were filled with tears, and he whispered, "Help me." Lisa's heart ached for the spirit, and she knew she had to find out who he was and what had happened to him. Through old newspaper articles and town records, Lisa discovered that a boy named Danny had lived in the house years ago. He had tragically drowned in a nearby pond, and his parents had moved away, leaving the house abandoned. Danny's spirit remained, searching for comfort and help. Determined to bring peace to Danny, Lisa and Sophie held a small ceremony by the pond, placing flowers and a toy boat on the water's edge. They spoke kind words to the spirit, assuring him that he was not forgotten. That night, the crying stopped and Danny's ghost appeared one last time, smiling and waving goodbye. The house felt lighter, and Sophie no longer spoke of her imaginary friend. Lisa knew they had helped a lost soul find peace, and their home was finally free of the haunting presence. Story 22. The Ghostly Train. In a small town nestled in the mountains, there was an old, abandoned train station. The station had once been a bustling hub, but had been closed for decades after a tragic accident. It was said that the station was haunted by the spirits of those who had perished in the crash. One rainy night, Ben, an amateur photographer, decided to explore the station and capture its eerie beauty. He had heard the stories but was skeptical about the hauntings. Armed with his camera, Ben ventured into the dilapidated building, the sound of dripping water echoing through the empty halls. As he set up his camera, Ben heard the faint sound of a train whistle, even though no trains had run through the station for years. The air grew cold, and a thick fog rolled in, obscuring his vision. Through the fog, he saw the ghostly image of an old train pulling into the station, its windows filled with spectral passengers. Ben watched in awe as the ghostly train came to a stop, and the spirits of the passengers stepped onto the platform. They looked around as if searching for something, their faces filled with sadness and confusion. Among them was a young woman who approached Ben, her eyes pleading for help. The young woman whispered that they were all trapped, unable to move on until they reached their final destination. Ben felt a deep sense of compassion for the lost souls and vowed to help them find peace. Ben researched the history of the train crash and discovered that the passengers had been on their way to a nearby town for a festival. He organized a memorial event at the station, inviting townspeople to honor the victims. As the ceremony took place, Ben saw the ghostly train appear one last time. The spirits of the passengers boarded the train, and it slowly pulled away, the young woman waving goodbye as it vanished into the mist. From that night on, the station was quiet, and the hauntings ceased. Ben's photographs of the event captured the ethereal beauty of the ghostly train and its passengers, a testament to the power of remembrance and compassion. Story 23. The Lady in White. The legend of the Lady in White was well known in the small coastal town of Harborside. The ghost of a woman dressed in a flowing white gown was said to wander the cliffs, searching for her lost love who had perished at sea. Many had claimed to see her, but none had ever gotten close enough to help her. One foggy evening, Claire, a writer seeking inspiration, decided to visit the cliffs. She had heard the stories and was fascinated by the tragic romance. As she walked along the rocky path, the sound of the crashing waves and the distant call of seagulls filled the air. As dusk settled, Claire saw a figure in white standing at the edge of the cliff. The lady in white gazed out at the sea, her expression one of deep sorrow. Claire approached slowly, her heart pounding. She called out softly, "Can I help you?" The ghostly figure turned to Claire, her eyes filled with tears. She whispered her story of love and loss, how her fiancé had gone to sea and never returned. She had waited for him every day until her death, and her spirit remained, unable to move on without him. Claire felt a surge of empathy and promised to help the lady in white find peace. She gathered information about shipwrecks and lost sailors from the local historical society and discovered that the fiancé's ship had indeed sunk not far from the cliffs. With the help of local divers, Claire arranged for a memorial at the site of the wreck. As the sun set, Claire and the townspeople cast flowers into the sea and said prayers for the lost souls. The lady in white appeared one last time, her face now peaceful. She smiled at Claire, then faded away, the waves gently lapping at the shore. Claire returned to her writing, inspired by the story of the lady in white and the power of love that transcends even death. The legend of the lady in white became a cherished tale in Harborside, a reminder of the enduring strength of love and the importance of helping lost souls find their way. Story 24. The Watcher in the Woods. The dense forest surrounding the small village of Oak Hollow had always been a place of mystery and superstition. Villagers spoke of a watcher in the woods, a ghostly figure who protected the forest and its creatures. Many who ventured too deep into the woods reported feeling watched and sometimes saw a shadowy figure following them. One autumn evening, Rachel, a nature photographer, decided to explore the forest. She was drawn to its beauty and the stories of the Watcher. Armed with her camera, she set out on a narrow path, the leaves crunching underfoot. As the sun set and darkness enveloped the forest, Rachel felt an unsettling presence. The trees seemed to close in around her, and she heard faint whispers on the wind. She continued on, determined to capture the perfect shot, when she saw a shadowy figure in the distance. Rachel followed the figure deeper into the woods, her curiosity overpowering her fear. The figure led her to a clearing where a massive, ancient oak tree stood. The Watcher appeared, a tall, spectral figure with eyes that seemed to pierce through the darkness. He pointed to the base of the tree, where Rachel saw a small, unmarked grave. Through a series of eerie visions, Rachel learned that the Watcher was the spirit of a guardian who had protected the forest for centuries. He had died defending the woods from those who sought to harm it, and his spirit remained to continue his duty. Rachel decided to honor the Watcher's memory by raising awareness about the forest and its importance. She organized a community event to protect and preserve the woods, sharing the story of the Watcher and his sacrifice. As the villagers gathered in the clearing, planting new trees and cleaning up the forest, the Watcher appeared one last time. He nodded in gratitude, then disappeared, leaving the forest feeling more alive and vibrant. Rachel's photographs of the event captured the haunting beauty of the forest and the Watcher's presence, a reminder of the importance of protecting nature and honoring those who dedicate their lives to its preservation. Story 25. The Phantom Bell Ringer. St. Mary's Church had stood in the heart of the town for over a century, its tall bell tower a symbol of hope and faith. However, the church was also known for its haunting, the ghost of a bell ringer named Peter who had died tragically while ringing the bells during a storm. One stormy night, Father Michael, the church's new priest, decided to stay late and prepare for the upcoming service. As the wind howled and the rain beat against the windows, he heard the sound of the church bells ringing, even though no one was supposed to be in the tower. Curious and a bit apprehensive, Father Michael climbed the narrow staircase to the bell tower. As he reached the top, he saw a ghostly figure pulling the ropes, his face etched with sorrow and determination. The ghost stopped and turned to Father Michael, his eyes filled with a silent plea for help. Father Michael learned that Peter had died while trying to warn the town of a flood. His spirit remained, bound by his duty to protect the people. Determined to help the restless spirit, Father Michael held a special service in Peter's honor, sharing his story and the sacrifice he had made. The townspeople gathered in the church, lighting candles and saying prayers for Peter. As the service ended, the church bells rang one last time, filling the air with a beautiful, haunting melody. Peter's ghost appeared, smiling in gratitude, then slowly faded away. The haunting ceased, and the church felt more peaceful and welcoming. Father Michael continued his work with a renewed sense of purpose, inspired by Peter's dedication and sacrifice. The story of the Phantom bell ringer became a cherished part of the town's history, a reminder of the enduring power of duty and the importance of remembering those who came before us. As the rain continues to fall and the night deepens, these true scary stories remind us that the world is full of mysteries and the unknown. The shadows that move in the corners of our vision, the whispers we hear in the dead of night, and the chills that run down our spines are not always just our imagination. They are echoes of the past, spirits seeking closure, justice, or simply to be remembered. So, as you sit alone on this rainy night, remember to listen closely to the sounds around you and keep an eye on the shadows, for you never know what might be lurking just beyond your sight. Story 31. The Ghostly Child at the Orphanage. The old Maplewood orphanage had been abandoned for decades, standing as a decaying monument to its tragic past. The townspeople whispered about the ghost of a young boy named Timmy who had died in a fire that had swept through the orphanage, leaving behind a legacy of sorrow and loss. One stormy evening, Emily, a historian and paranormal investigator, decided to explore the orphanage and uncover the truth about Timmy's death. Armed with a flashlight and her notebook, she ventured into the crumbling building, the sound of rain echoing through the empty halls. As she wandered through the orphanage, Emily felt a chill in the air and heard faint laughter, like that of a child playing. Following the sound, she found herself in the playroom, where old, dusty toys were scattered across the floor. In the corner, she saw the ghostly figure of a little boy, his eyes filled with sadness. Timmy's spirit pointed to a charred dollhouse in the corner of the room. Emily approached it cautiously and found a hidden compartment containing letters and drawings. Through these artifacts, she pieced together the story of Timmy's life and the tragic night of the fire. Determined to help Timmy find peace, Emily organized a memorial service at the orphanage. She invited the townspeople to honor the memory of the children who had perished in the fire. As they gathered in the playroom, lighting candles and sharing stories, the air grew warmer and a sense of peace filled the space. Timmy's ghost appeared one last time, smiling and waving goodbye to Emily and the gathered townspeople. With his spirit at peace, the orphanage felt less foreboding, and the whispers of its haunted past faded away. Emily's investigation and the memorial service brought closure to a long-standing tragedy. The story of Timmy and the haunted orphanage became a cherished tale in Maplewood, a reminder of the importance of remembering and honoring those who came before us. Story 32. The Phantom Bride. In the quiet village of Rosewood, an old church stood at the edge of town, its bell tower a familiar sight against the skyline. The church was said to be haunted by the ghost of a bride named Lily, who had died on her wedding day in a tragic accident. Villagers often reported seeing a woman in a white gown wandering the church grounds, her eyes filled with sorrow. One rainy evening, Sophia, a young journalist, decided to investigate the legend of the Phantom Bride. She arrived at the church just as dusk was settling, the rain creating a melancholic backdrop for her investigation. As she entered the church, she felt an overwhelming sense of sadness. Sophia began her research, delving into old records and speaking with the village elders. She learned that Lily had been deeply in love with her fiancé, but on the day of their wedding, she had tragically fallen down the church stairs, breaking her neck. Her spirit remained, searching for the love she had lost. Determined to help Lily find peace, Sophia decided to hold a symbolic wedding ceremony. She gathered the villagers and explained her plan. They decorated the church with flowers and lit candles, creating a serene and beautiful atmosphere. As the ceremony began, the rain intensified and the air grew cold. Suddenly, the ghostly figure of Lily appeared at the altar, her eyes filled with gratitude. Sophia recited vows on behalf of Lily, and as the ceremony concluded, Lily's spirit smiled and slowly faded away. The church bells rang out, filling the village with a sense of joy and closure. The haunting ceased, and the church became a symbol of love and remembrance. Sophia's story of the Phantom Bride and the symbolic wedding ceremony became a beloved tale in Rosewood. a reminder of the enduring power of love and the importance of helping lost souls find peace. Story 33. The Spectre of the Abandoned Factory. The old textile factory on the outskirts of town had been abandoned for years, its machinery left to rust and its windows broken. It was said to be haunted by the ghost of a worker named Jack, who had died in a tragic accident. The townspeople avoided the factory, fearful of the eerie noises and ghostly apparitions that were often reported. One rainy night, Daniel, an urban explorer and amateur ghost hunter, decided to investigate the factory. Armed with a flashlight and his camera, he made his way through the dilapidated building, the sound of rain echoing through the empty halls. As Daniel explored, he heard the sound of machinery starting up, even though the factory had been out of operation for decades. He followed the noise and saw the ghostly figure of a man working at one of the old looms, his expression one of determination and sorrow. Daniel learned that Jack had been a dedicated worker, supporting his family through hard times. He had died in an accident when a machine malfunctioned, and his spirit remained, continuing the work he had loved. Determined to help Jack find peace, Daniel contacted Jack's descendants and shared his story. They gathered at the factory, bringing mementos and photographs of Jack's life. As they honored his memory, the machinery noise grew louder, then slowly faded away. Jack's ghost appeared one last time, his eyes filled with gratitude. He nodded to Daniel and his family, then slowly vanished, the factory falling silent once more. The haunting ceased, and the factory, though still abandoned, no longer felt foreboding. Daniel's investigation and the memorial service brought closure to Jack's tragic story. The tale of the specter of the abandoned factory and the ghost hunter who helped him find peace became a cherished legend in the town, a reminder of the importance of honoring the past and the spirits that linger. Story 34. The Haunted Theater. The old Majestic Theater had once been the pride of the city, hosting grand performances and attracting audiences from far and wide. However, it had fallen into disrepair and was said to be haunted by the ghost of an actress named Margaret, who had died tragically on stage during a performance. One stormy evening, Lily, an aspiring actress and theater enthusiast, decided to explore the Majestic Theater. She had heard the stories of Margaret's ghost and was intrigued by the theater's history. As she entered the grand, decaying auditorium, she felt a chill in the air. Lily wandered through the backstage area, where old costumes and props lay forgotten. Suddenly, she heard the sound of applause and saw the ghostly figure of a woman standing center stage, her eyes filled with sadness. The figure turned to Lily and whispered, "Help me." Determined to uncover the truth, Lily researched Margaret's life and death. She discovered that Margaret had been a talented actress who had died during a performance due to a malfunctioning trapdoor. Her spirit remained, longing for the recognition and closure she had never received. Lily decided to organize a special performance in Margaret's honor. She gathered local actors and put together a play that celebrated Margaret's life and talent. As the night of the performance approached, the theater was filled with excitement and anticipation. During the performance, the storm raged outside, and the theater lights flickered. As the final act concluded, the ghostly figure of Margaret appeared on stage, her eyes filled with gratitude. The audience, unaware of the apparition, erupted in applause. Margaret's spirit smiled at Lily, then slowly faded away. The theater fell silent, and the haunting ceased. The Majestic Theater was revitalized, becoming a beloved cultural landmark once again. Lily's dedication to honoring Margaret's memory brought peace to the restless spirit. The story of the haunted theater and the aspiring actress who helped a ghost find closure became a cherished tale in the city, a reminder of the enduring power of art and the importance of honoring those who came before us. Story 35. The Curse of the Old Manor. The grand old manor on the outskirts of the town had stood vacant for years, its windows boarded up and its gardens overgrown. It was said to be cursed, haunted by the ghost of Lady Eleanor, who had died under mysterious circumstances. The townspeople avoided the manor, fearful of the dark presence that lingered within its walls. One rainy evening, historian and author Charles decided to investigate the manor. He had heard the stories of the curse and was determined to uncover the truth. As he entered the decaying mansion, the sound of rain echoed through the empty halls, and a sense of foreboding filled the air. As Charles explored the manor, he felt an eerie presence and heard faint whispers. In the library, he found an old journal belonging to Lady Eleanor. Through its pages, he discovered that Eleanor had been betrayed by her husband, who had conspired with her maid to poison her and claim her fortune. Her spirit remained, seeking justice for her untimely death. Determined to help Eleanor find peace, Charles continued his research and found evidence to support her story. He gathered the townspeople and presented his findings, bringing the truth of Eleanor's death to light. They organized a memorial service at the manor, honoring Eleanor's memory and acknowledging the injustice she had suffered. As the ceremony took place, the air grew warmer and a sense of peace filled the manor. Eleanor's ghost appeared one last time, her eyes filled with gratitude. She nodded to Charles and the gathered townspeople, then slowly faded away. The curse was lifted, and the manor no longer felt foreboding. It was restored and became a cherished landmark, its dark history now a part of the town's rich heritage. Charles's investigation and the memorial service brought closure to Eleanor's tragic story. The tale of the curse of the old manor and the historian who uncovered the truth became a beloved legend in the town, a reminder of the importance of seeking justice and honoring the spirits of those who came before us. As the rain continues to fall and the night deepens, these true scary stories remind us that the world is full of mysteries and the unknown. The shadows that move in the corners of our vision, the whispers we hear in the dead of night, and the chills that run down our spines are not always just our imagination. They are echoes of the past, spirits seeking closure, justice, or simply to be remembered. So, as you sit alone on this rainy night, remember to listen closely to the sounds around you and keep an eye on the shadows, for you never know what might be lurking just beyond your sight. Story 36. The Vanishing Street Vendor. In the bustling city market, vendors and shoppers filled the narrow streets with noise and activity. Among them was an old man named Salim, who sold handcrafted trinkets and charms. He was well known and well liked, but one rainy evening, Salim vanished without a trace. His stall remained untouched, and his wares were left behind. Months passed, and the market continued its daily rhythm, but the memory of Salim lingered. One stormy night, Maya, a young journalist, decided to investigate his disappearance. She had heard whispers that Salim's spirit still wandered the market, seeking help to find peace. As Maya walked through the market, the rain falling in heavy sheets, she felt an eerie presence. The usually bustling market was quiet, with only the sound of the rain and the occasional clap of thunder. She approached Salim's old stall, now covered in dust and cobwebs. Suddenly, Maya saw a shadowy figure at the edge of the market, watching her. She called out, but the figure disappeared into the darkness. Determined to uncover the truth, Maya began interviewing the vendors who had known Salim. They told her of a dispute Salim had with a rival vendor who had threatened him over his successful business. Maya dug deeper and found evidence that Salim's rival had been involved in his disappearance. Confronting the rival vendor, she learned that Salim had been killed in a struggle and his body hidden in an abandoned warehouse nearby. The rival had then spread rumors of Salim's ghost to keep people away from the warehouse. Maya contacted the authorities, who recovered Salim's remains and arrested his rival. That night, she held a small vigil at Salim's stall, lighting candles and saying prayers for his spirit. As the rain continued to pour, Maya saw Salim's ghost appear one last time, smiling and nodding in gratitude before fading away. The market was no longer haunted, and Salim's memory was honored by those who knew him. Maya's investigation brought closure to a tragic story, and the market community felt a renewed sense of peace. The tale of the vanishing street vendor and the journalist who uncovered the truth became a cherished story in the city, a reminder of the importance of justice and remembrance. Story 37. The Haunted Hospital. The old St. Joseph's Hospital had been closed for years, its halls silent and its rooms empty. It was said to be haunted by the ghost of a nurse named Emily, who had died tragically in a fire that had destroyed part of the building. Despite the warnings, a group of paranormal investigators decided to spend a night in the hospital to document the haunting. One rainy night, the team, led by Dr. Harris, arrived at the hospital. The storm outside added to the eerie atmosphere as they set up their equipment and began their investigation. The hospital was dark and cold, the sound of rain echoing through the empty halls. As the night progressed, the investigators experienced strange phenomena. Doors slamming shut, disembodied voices, and the feeling of being watched. In one of the patient rooms, they saw the ghostly figure of a woman in a nurse's uniform standing by the bed. Her expression was one of sorrow and despair. Dr. Harris learned from old hospital records that Emily had been a dedicated nurse who had died while trying to save patients during the fire. Her spirit remained, unable to rest because she felt she had failed in her duty. Determined to help Emily find peace, the team conducted a seance, hoping to communicate with her spirit. As the storm raged outside, they called out to Emily, expressing their gratitude for her bravery and assuring her that she had not failed. Emily's ghost appeared, her eyes filled with tears of gratitude. She whispered, "Thank you," and slowly faded away. The hospital fell silent, and the paranormal activity ceased. The investigators left, knowing they had helped a brave spirit find peace. St. Joseph's Hospital was eventually restored and reopened as a community center. The story of the haunted hospital and the team of investigators who helped a ghostly nurse find peace became a cherished tale in the town, a reminder of the enduring power of compassion and dedication. Story 38. The Ghost in the Garden. The old mansion on Willow Lane was known for its beautiful, sprawling gardens. However, it was also said to be haunted by the ghost of a gardener named Jacob, who had died tragically in a freak accident. The mansion had stood vacant for years, its gardens overgrown and untended. One rainy day, Laura, an avid gardener, decided to explore the mansion and its legendary gardens. She was fascinated by the stories of Jacob's ghost and hoped to uncover the truth. As she walked through the overgrown paths, the sound of rain created a melancholic backdrop. As Laura tended to the neglected plants, she felt a presence watching her. She saw a shadowy figure among the trees, and the air grew cold. The figure seemed to be guiding her, showing her which plants needed the most care. Laura felt a deep connection with the ghostly gardener and decided to restore the gardens in his honor. With each passing day, the gardens began to flourish. Laura continued to feel Jacob's presence, and she often heard his voice whispering guidance. One stormy evening, as she worked late into the night, she saw Jacob's ghost standing by the old oak tree, his eyes filled with gratitude. Laura learned from old records that Jacob had been passionate about the gardens and had spent his life caring for them. His tragic death had left his spirit restless, longing to see the gardens restored to their former glory. Determined to bring peace to Jacob, Laura organized a garden party in his honor. She invited the townspeople to celebrate the restored gardens and share stories about Jacob's life. As they gathered under the old oak tree, the rain stopped and a rainbow appeared in the sky. Jacob's ghost appeared one last time, smiling and nodding in gratitude. He slowly faded away, leaving the gardens vibrant and full of life. Laura's dedication to restoring the gardens brought closure to a long-standing tragedy, and the mansion became a beloved landmark. The story of the ghost in the garden and the gardener who restored it became a cherished tale in the town, a reminder of the enduring power of dedication and the importance of honoring the past. Story 39. The Phantom of the Library. The Old Town Library had always been a place of knowledge and learning, but it was also rumored to be haunted by the ghost of a librarian named Miss Abigail, who had died under mysterious circumstances. The library's attic, filled with ancient books and manuscripts, was said to be the center of the haunting. One rainy afternoon, Sarah, a curious bookworm, decided to investigate the attic. She had heard the stories of Miss Abigail's ghost and was intrigued by the mystery. As she climbed the creaking stairs, the sound of rain echoed through the library, creating an eerie atmosphere. In the attic, Sarah found dusty bookshelves and old furniture covered in cobwebs. Suddenly, she heard the faint sound of a woman humming a lullaby. Following the sound, she saw the ghostly figure of a woman in an old-fashioned dress standing by a window, her expression one of sadness. Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah began researching Miss Abigail's life. She discovered that Abigail had been a dedicated librarian who had died while trying to protect a rare manuscript from thieves. Her spirit remained, longing to see the manuscript safe and secure. Sarah decided to find the missing manuscript and return it to the library. She contacted local historians and collectors, and after months of searching, she located the rare book in a private collection. The owner agreed to donate it to the library in Abigail's memory. On a stormy evening, Sarah placed the manuscript in a display case in the library's main hall. As she did, the air grew warmer, and the sound of the lullaby filled the room. Miss Abigail's ghost appeared one last time, her eyes filled with gratitude. She whispered, "Thank you," and slowly faded away. The haunting ceased, and the library felt more welcoming and peaceful. The story of the phantom of the library and the bookworm who helped the ghost find closure became a cherished tale in the town, a reminder of the enduring power of knowledge and the importance of preserving history. Story 40. The Ghost Ship. The coastal town of Seabreeze was known for its picturesque views and rich maritime history. However, it was also known for the legend of the Ghost Ship, a spectral vessel that appeared during storms, its crew made up of lost souls seeking redemption. One stormy night, Captain Jack, a seasoned sailor, decided to investigate the legend. He had heard the tales of the ghost ship and was determined to uncover the truth. As he set sail, the rain poured down and the sea grew rough. As the storm intensified, Jack saw the ghostly outline of a ship emerging from the fog. The vessel was old and tattered, its sails torn, and its crew were shadowy figures with hollow eyes. Jack felt a chill run down his spine as the ghost ship drew closer. Determined to help the lost souls, Jack called out to them, asking what they needed. The ghostly captain stepped forward and told Jack their story. They had been sailors who had perished in a shipwreck, their spirits unable to find peace because they had not received a proper burial. Jack vowed to help them and, with the help of local historians, located the site of the shipwreck. He organized a memorial service at sea, inviting the townspeople to honor the lost sailors. As they cast flowers into the water and said prayers, the storm began to calm. The ghost ship appeared one last time, its crew smiling and waving in gratitude. The vessel slowly faded away, leaving the sea calm and peaceful. Jack's investigation and the memorial service brought closure to a long-standing mystery, and the legend of the ghost ship became a cherished tale in Seabreeze. The story of the ghost ship and the captain who helped lost souls find peace became a reminder of the enduring power of compassion and the importance of honoring those who have gone before us. As the rain continues to fall and the night deepens, these true scary stories remind us that the world is full of mysteries and the unknown. The shadows that move in the corners of our vision, the whispers we hear in the dead of night, and the chills that run down our spines are not always just our imagination. They are echoes of the past, spirits seeking closure, justice, or simply to be remembered. So, as you sit alone on this rainy night, remember to listen closely to the sounds around you and keep an eye on the shadows, for you never know what might be lurking just beyond your sight.